we see these special factoring patterns. If we have a cubed plus b cubed, you see that formula that you ought to memorize, and the difference of two cubes as well. And when we come down to the example, we see that we have the sum of two cubes. And you say, well, I don't see that right away. Well, 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. So those are two cubes, and we write it as two cubes. And you say, well, I see it even less in the next one. And the difference of two cubes, well, if I take out a 2, I'm left with 8, which is a cube. And I'm left with 125, which is a cube, a perfect cube, 5 times 5 times 5. And of course, z to the third, I know that's a perfect cube. And so then I know what a and b are. A in the second case here is 2z. 2z is a right there. They're the same thing. And for b, we have 5. And then I just go back up here and I say, well, let's see the difference of a cubed and b cubed. And I fill it in. I fill in the formula there. Okay, so we're going to try to do that here for the example. We have, we have an extra 5. This ends in 0, so I know 5 comes out of it. And when I do that on my calculator, I find I get 64 if I take out a 5. And I'm going to take out a negative 5 because I like the second sign, unless I want to write it backwards, which would be okay. But I think I'll take the negative 5 out. And that'll leave behind a positive z to the third and a negative 64 inside, because a negative times a negative, if I multiplied 5 back by 64, I'd get back to 320, and it'd be positive. So the inside, now that the 5 is on the outside, the inside is the difference of two perfect cubes. So I'm going to use a cubed minus b cubed is equal to, now we memorize this, we know that if it's negative, right away the negative shows up between the a and the b. If it were positive, it'd be a plus b, but it's negative, so then I say a squared, and if I already had the negative, I'm going to put a positive here. If I didn't, here's where I'd put the negative, but since I already did the negative, there we go, a times b, and then plus b cubed squared, and that's how I always do it. And the only thing difference between the formulas is that sign and that sign. And it's just a matter of which comes first. In this case, I started with a negative, so I'm going to start with a negative. Okay, so let's see. In my situation here, a is equal to z, and b is equal to 4, because 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. So let's plug this in. Well, first I'll have my negative 5 out in front. And then I have a, which is z, and it's subtraction, so I'm going to subtract 4. And then I'm going to say a squared. Well, that's z squared. Plus, because I've already done my negative, I only do 1. Then I'm going to say a times b. So that's 4 times z. And then at the end I'm going to say b squared, that's 4 squared, that's 16. And I'm altogether factored there. Just because I know that formula, I know that rule. I think you'll agree that rule isn't too hard to memorize, and it sure is helpful. So you ought to memorize that. And if you memorize that one, you know the one for the plus version as well.